we begin with the foundational steps of protection planning. And what
Okay.
I always tell my clients is there is no financial plan without protection planning because we can build assets. We can accumulate wealth. We can create great investment portfolios. But if they're not properly protected, if we don't have the proper insurances in place, then none of that really matters, right?
Mm.
So that's the foundational steps of okay, what do I need to do? So for us and working with us, one of the first things we look at is what is the bare bones necessity when it comes to protection planning for you and your family as it refers to, building a legacy, growing a legacy, and protecting the current assets you have. So we typically look at four buckets when describing, what those bare bones things are. So the first category you have to identify when trying to understand what your insurance need is, your protection need is your final expense. And final expenses are connected in a couple different ways. The first is, when you go, how you want to go. Meaning, do you want to be buried? Do you want to be cremated? Right? Do you want to have a celebration of life? Right? What does all of those things look like? And what's the average cost right now of those things? But also included in final expense is all of your personal debt, not your mortgage, right? Not your car note or your federal school loans, but any personal loans that you have, any private school loans that you have, any credit card debt that you might have. That's included in your final expense number because guess what? They're going to come knocking at your estate and your assets if that stuff isn't paid, right? When you transition. If you have credit card debt and your heir calls that credit card company saying, hey, X has transitioned, they're going to say, okay, we got first dibs on X amount of dollars to his estate, right? So all of that is incorporated in that final expense bucket. The second bucket is your primary home. And you already talked about, protecting that asset. What does that look like? Does it mean putting that in a trust? Does it mean, getting life insurance to cover the value of the home? Does it mean getting life insurance to cover the principal of the mortgage that's left in the home? Well, let me tell you something. It means all three when it comes to your primary home. So identifying what that number is and what that might look like as well. The third category is pretty unique, especially if you have adult children. This is where you might incorporate your adult children, you might incorporate your grandchildren or future grandchildren, because that third box is all about your children and your legacy. There's three questions that we ask in that third box. All things being equal, if you have children who are under the age of 18 and or grandchildren, all things being equal, if you had the opportunity, would you want to give them a head start with, cash or just, gifting funds, gifting money at the age of 18, 21, 24, whatever that might be, whether it be $20,000, $50,000 to help pay for the first year of college or to help them establish a new business or to help them put a down payment on their home, right? That's the first question. The second question is, again, if you had children or grandchildren who are under the age of 18, who are not yet college age, is it important to you that, you know, if you planned on assisting in college education, is it important you to ensure that that college education is covered? God forbid you were to transition before that time came, right? That's the second question that you ask in that third category. And the third and final question is leaving a legacy, leaving wealth behind. When that time comes, whether it be tomorrow, 30 years, or 50 years, or 60 years from now, no matter how old your children or grandchildren is, do you want to leave a specific amount of wealth in cash asset behind, whether that be 100,000, 200,000, whatever that number is, to help them build on the family legacy and to utilize that cash in a smart way to grow and build assets? So that's that third category when it comes to protection planning. That fourth and final category is income protection. You are still working. If your spouse is still working, what is your current income and how much of your income would you want to still come into the household? God forbid you were to transition before you actually retire, right? I always tell my clients, I cannot keep you here or replace you physically, emotionally, or spiritually. But it's my job and my duty to keep you here financially, no matter when you transition, to ensure that your financial contribution to the household continues no matter when that time comes for you. And that's what income protection is. When it comes to life insurance, the most important factor is identifying what your number is in each four of those boxes. What is your number in final expense? How much is your funeral or burial or celebration of life going to cost? How much private debt do you have, right? What is the value of your primary home? What does legacy mean for you when it comes to your children and your grandchildren? And what's that income protection number for you and your spouse? That's your overall need. And by the way, the life insurance that you have through work, that's partial income protection. They usually give you a year or 2 years of your salary. God forbid something were to happen to you, and if you were to transition while you were still working. But what about those other years? Are those other years important as well for you and your spouse? And so those are the numbers that you want to think about when it comes to building a protection plan for you and your family.